Let's have a look at today's first test of preseason testing 2021. The first test day is always interesting from an aerodynamic point of view because teams do their correlation work. That means they use huge sensor rakes and flow-vis paint to check if the flow around the car is doing what it's supposed to do. The flow-vis paint shows everybody what the flow in certain area is doing. You can see the direction, separations, and even transition areas between laminar and turbulent flow. But also the sensor rakes can tell you a lot. These sensor rakes consist of a frame with lots of probes. The problem of simple pitot tubes is the small angle range before the flow starts separating. This is usually around plus minus 10 degrees. But in lots of areas around the Formula 1 car, the flow direction changes more than 10 degrees. So the teams use kiel probes. Kiel probes are simple pitot tubes with a specifically shaped housing around it. Because of the shape, the air which flows through the probe is aligned and its total pressure can be measured. This increases the angle sensitivity up to around 30 degrees reliably. Teams then arrange lots of these kiel probes in a regular pattern at a specific location around the car. Each probe measures the total pressure at this particular position. The static pressure will be measured somewhere else, and together with the air density, we can now work out the velocity. If we now combine the velocity value of each probe with each other, we get a colorful picture, which is a velocity distribution. Teams can then compare this to CFD and the wind tunnel data, so they know if the car on the track does the same as predicted. For areas like behind the front wheel, the approaching angle of the air is not too extreme, and all probes can be aligned straight. But it gets interesting in areas like the tire squirt or the rear wheel wake. This is that massive sensor rake that we saw today again. Of course, teams want to check the flow behind the car after the flow regulation changes. In this area, the flow comes from so extreme directions that the probes have to be aligned to the airflow, and teams use their CFD data to align the probes. So when we look at these sensor rakes and their directions, we in fact see the CFD results of the team. Important for these rakes is to create as little blockage as possible to get a realistic result. Also, it's best to only run one rake at a time so they don't interfere with each other. But because of the limited testing time, some teams are combining them. A few things that stood out today were Vettel's helmet was quite high up. Because Vettel is not a particularly tall driver, it looks like he didn't find his final seating position yet. Same thing with Leclerc. While his helmet is always a bit more exposed in the past, today he was sitting extra high. So much so that it looked like his helmet was disturbed the air ducts behind him. And as predicted, Ferrari was driving with a straight, high downforce rear wing today. Red Bull was always known for smaller rear wings because their underbody worked more efficiently than others. Now that the underbody is compromised, with the new regulation change, Red Bull is using a rear wing with more center suction. Williams got rid of their old magnesium gearbox design and is buying the gearbox now from Mercedes. This gives them a slimmer rear end, and it shows us that things are changing at Williams. But at the same time, they are running quite a lot of rake with this low rake Mercedes gearbox, so let's see how that's gonna work out. They always had their own way of doing things. For example, Williams also produces the monocoque differently than others. And the general problem with teams who used to be successful in the past is that they start living in the past, and people start losing their open mind for innovations. It's nice to see that Williams is now changing things. And this is exactly what Mercedes is always surprising us with. Although they are very successful, they stay innovative. And this is what keeps them successful in the long run. In general, it looks like most teams are trying to compensate the downforce loss of the rule change with more rake. If they are able to seal the diffuser, that might be a good idea. Let me know how you liked the first test day and what is your favorite team in the comments below.